This podcast is presented by the Education and Development Department of the United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite, Prince Hall Affiliated, Northern Jurisdiction USA Incorporated. My name is Sovereign Grand Inspector General Dr. Dwayne Thomas, and I serve as the Director of the Education and Development Department. The Moving Camp podcast is designed to educate, to inform, and provide information across our audience, as well as discuss important issues as they affect our membership. And this is exactly what we plan to do on this episode. So, without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to introduce the host of the Moving Camp podcast, Sublime Prince Stephen Barrett. Sublime Prince Barrett is the Commander-in-Chief of Peninsular Consistory Number 44, Valley of Lansing, Orient of Michigan. He is also a valuable member of the United Supreme Council Education and Development Department. So without further ado, Sublime Prince Barrett, the floor is yours.
Hey, I appreciate it here to the director, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Dr. Dwayne E. Thomas. Also, too, I'm gonna call him now. We're gonna announce it right here, man. The official mentor in this project here with me, Gary Smith. I got you, sir. All right, I'm gonna put you to work on teaching me some more things. But I'm here. Like I said, I'm super excited for this edition of the podcast. We're gonna tackle something that I personally believe has not been realized or communicated on such a large grand scale, and something that's very necessary that we need to be able to walk through for each and every individual to be able to make sure that we are understanding our roles, what we do, and how to do it correctly, because there is only one constitution, right? So we'll get into a little bit more of that later, but I have the esteemed pleasure of being able to introduce our guest for this podcast, Sovereign Grand Inspector General Elmer Evans. He is actually a member of the Martin Luther King Jr. Consistory number 86 in the Valley of Ambler in the Orient of Pennsylvania. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have him talk to us and come to us and walk us through the protocol at banquets that we're going to be able to have in regards to what we need to do as Scottish Rite Masons. Okay, so this is very important. I say sit back, relax, enjoy, as we're going to go through a nice, good, healthy amount of information that's going to make us better Scottish Rite Masons. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our esteemed guest here. And he told me I got to call him Brother Evans. You know, and I appreciate that here, sir. So right now, sir, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you to the United Supreme Council Education and Development Department under the leadership of Sovereign Grand Inspector General Dwayne Thomas. And thank you for your great welcome of me and my topic this evening, one that I'm very passionate about. I've been a Scottish Rite Mason for about 31 years. And through that time in my travels, I've been able to amass a lot of information concerning protocol and how we go about handling ourselves as Scottish Rite Masons at banquets. And that's what this educational venture will be specifically focused on. So I'm going to show you some slides that I developed. They're rather lengthy, so I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest or Cliff Notes version for some of you, so that this becomes really part of the way you think about all of the various things that go into how we think and act as Scottish Rite Masons when it comes particularly to a banquet. This is going to review the protocol at banquets, and I consider this a training module. So during this podcast, we're going to talk about the duties, responsibilities, and expectations that we all have when it comes to protocol at a Scottish Rite banquet. So I hope to cover what is Scottish Rite protocol, what is the proper attire that you and I should wear at a banquet or event. How about head table seating? Very complex. We're going to make it very, very transparent and easy for you. Audience seating will also be something we'll discuss. We'll touch on the processional and even give you an example. We'll talk about establishing protocol and the salutation by the Master of Ceremonies, and we'll demystify that. And then we'll wrap up with the all-important Scottish Rite toast at refections. And that is the proper title, Toast at Refections. So our objective here is to ensure uniformity in all Scottish Rite breakfasts, luncheons, and banquets. So what is Scottish Rite protocol? Protocol may be defined, according to our Masonic understanding, as the ceremonial forms and courtesies that were established as proper and correct in the ordinary intercourse of Masonic life, especially our conduct when it comes to formal and social occasions. And we've had a high standard of decorum when it comes to how we conduct ourselves in these events. And we owe a lot of our success to men who are willing to follow very closely the ancient traditions that we've made quite ordinary, men exceptional, and placed them on a pedestal, crowning them with accolades and traditions of the craft that it dictates. So in order to do this, we need to establish and follow a firm policy of uniformity of procedural practices throughout the entire Orient and Scottish Rite Masonry in the Northern jurisdiction. So this will provide us with the appropriate approach and help you in any given situation that requires a general framework when it comes to protocol. So just what is Scottish Rite protocol? It's concerned with the amenities and customary courtesies of mutual respect and friendliness to our members and visitors. And all of this has one idea in mind: to have the assurance and poise that comes from knowing what to do. It's stated in our syllabus that it is like bread cast upon the waters. Thus, we maintain graciousness and courtesy with ease and thoughtfulness. Respect and friendship will come back to you twofold. So it's further defined as that discipline which gives consideration to both grade, which is very important in Scottish Rite Masonry, in both public and private Masonic ceremonies. And that includes the reception, which is a process of having our guests and dignitaries enter the venue, the order of seating, as we may refer to at the dais, and the formal introduction of guests and dignitaries on a dais or at a banquet table. So in our Constitution and General Regulations of the United Supreme Council, on page 98, Article 1004 in particular, it's referencing protocol at banquets. So this is constitutional. It states the traditional feasts and refections held by the Supreme Council and several subordinate bodies shall be observed in strict accordance with the ritualistic requirements as prescribed by the United Supreme Council. Such observances shall never be made the occasion of general social functions. So this refers to how we conduct ourselves at banquets and not general social events. The syllabus goes on to state, and this is officially authorized on page 38, feasts or banquets in these degrees are termed refections. So it is not reflections, it is refections, which means a small meal at a gathering. So I'd like to take away one myth of Scottish Rite Masons during this podcast and talk about attire. That's something that we all know, but it's a good reminder. The proper dress for an illustrious sir and freighter and all male guests for Scottish Rite banquets is a black tuxedo, a white tuxedo shirt, black socks, black shoes, black bow tie, not long tie, but a bow tie, your Scottish Rite crown and jewel, and the dress does not change with the seasons. So let's talk a little bit about the head table seating. The number at a head table is governed strictly by the facility and the number of people you wish to accommodate, particularly your dignitaries. The prescribed seating arrangements at the head table or dais at all Scottish Rite banquets should have the representatives of the Scottish Rite seated to the right of the podium, looking out towards the general seated area. So all of the elected officers of the United Supreme Council, therefore, should be on the right side of the dais, that is, right of the podium or rostrum. The highest ranking Scottish Rite Mason should always be seated in the first seat to the right of the podium. So you'll notice that at the United Supreme Council, our Sovereign Grand Commander, Dr. Melvin J. Bazemore, 33rd degree, is always in the first seat on the right of the podium. The invited representatives of symbolic masonry, such as the Most Worshipful Grand Master or their direct representative, should always be seated to the left of the podium, and he should be seated no more than 3 seats, but we recommend and urge you to have the representative or the Grand Master himself to be in the second seat. Who should be in the first seat? The Master of Ceremonies of the banquet. Visiting dignitaries from different valleys or orients should be seated next to their local counterparts if space allows. If it is known who will be in attendance, it is strongly recommended that place cards be utilized to designate each attendee's proper seat to avoid confusion. Let's talk a little bit about audience seating. There should be no ladies seated at the head table of a Scottish Rite banquet. Please take note to the exception of this rule. Should an invitation be extended to some dignitary who is female, she will be seated at the head table. The seating of a female at the head table must, however, be approved by the deputy for the Orient prior to the banquet. This could be a mayor or a state legislator or even the Vice President of the United States. There should be reserved tables for the ladies deserving of special recognition at a Scottish Rite banquet. The State Grand Loyal Lady Ruler, State Grand Assembly officers, Loyal Lady Rulers of the constituent assembly should have reserved seating as close to the front of the room as possible near the center. The wives and significant others of Scottish Rite Masons and visiting dignitaries seated on the dais should be seated in reserved tables on the front row as closest to the center of the room as possible. When escorting loyal ladies of the Golden Circle and other female dignitaries, Scottish Rite Masons will always be on the right and the female will be on the left. It is customary for ladies and all male attendees to be seated prior to the head table being seated if possible. Now let's turn our attention to the processional. Guests are received starting with the lowest in grade and ending with the highest in grade of those on the dais. On any occasion when the Most Worshipful Grand Master of Masons is in attendance, he or his direct representative is afforded the highest rank by our Sovereign Grand Commander. It is unnecessary to introduce the dignitaries upon entering the room, as these individuals will be introduced when the proper salutation and protocol is established. Let's be honest, that will lengthen the time of the banquet. And remember, we have guests there who are not in our order. On occasion, when the Sovereign Grand Commander or Deputy for the Orient is in attendance, they should be escorted by honorary members of the United Supreme Council. All Scottish Rite Masons will stand upon the reception of the Deputy for the Orient, Sovereign Grand Commander, and the Most Worshipful Grand Master. Dignitaries should be escorted directly to the dais in the same manner as all others seated on the dais. Once the procession has been completed, no one else should be introduced, even if they are late in arriving at the event. Now, let's turn our attention to an example processional at a Scottish Rite banquet. Remember that the lowest rank is introduced first. So in this case, we would introduce the honorees, the consistory officers, the thrice potent master, the most wise and perfect master, and the commander-in-chief. The valley overseer, if you have one, or valley instructor, assistant to the deputy for the Orient, the deputy for the Orient, any elected Supreme Council officers, the Sovereign Grand Commander, and finally, the Most Worshipful Grand Master. Now, let's demystify what establishing protocol really means. Protocol should always be established at a Scottish Rite function. The Master of Ceremonies is responsible for doing that and providing a complete and correct salutation. it should be prepared before the banquet. The salutation of a function are very important and show respect to our officers as well as our visiting dignitaries and visitors. They should be carefully prepared and accurately given. Introductions should be made in ascending order of rank, as I basically stated on the previous slide. Introductions at a Scottish Rite banquet should be limited to those at the head table only. So after the protocol has been established, other speakers who give remarks should not, I repeat, should not repeat the protocol, but should acknowledge the Master of Ceremonies, the highest ranking Scottish Rite officer in attendance, and the most worshipful Grand Master or his direct representative. Now, the salutation to establish protocol is pretty simple, but let's go over it. The Master of Ceremonies is responsible for this, and they should give this salutation in their opening remarks, and they're giving recognition from the highest to the lowest rank of dignitaries. So if you were paying attention, and I know you were, as they enter the room, our dignitaries are introduced lowest to highest. And when we are giving the establishment of the protocol, you're providing the salutation in the opening remarks, and the salutation is given by giving the highest to the lowest of the dignitaries. So the highest, as stated, this deference has been afforded by the Sovereign Grand Commander to the most worshipful Grand Master of the given state. And then we acknowledge our Sovereign Grand Commander of the United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliation, Northern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated, Dr. Melvin J. Bazemore, 33rd degree. Then we acknowledge the Commander-in-Chief of the Orient, the most illustrious Commander-in-Chief of the Orient of the given state, and Deputy for the Orient, and then his acknowledgement of his name. Of course, we want to recognize the Sovereign Grand Inspectors General who are in attendance, as well as the Grand Inspectors General, and then finally our illustrious Commander-in-Chief, First and Second Lieutenant Commanders, officers of the concordant Scottish Rite bodies, and sublime princes of the royal secret. So obviously we will make this slide presentation a reference. So please, if you're taking notes, forgive me for moving through this, but we want to make sure that we complete this whole informational seminar in this podcast. So we also have to establish the protocol to include those guests such as our State Grand Loyal Lady Rulers, the past State Grand Loyal Lady Rulers, officers and members of the Order of the Golden Circle, which is an auxiliary of the United Supreme Council of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliation, Northern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated, and to the loyal ladies of the various assemblies here represented, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Now, this is very important. This is the key to establishing the protocol. After you have acknowledged all of those at the dais, and of course, our loyal ladies, inasmuch as the proper salutation has been given, those approaching the podium need only acknowledge the most worshipful Grand Master, Sovereign Grand Commander, and the Deputy for the Orient of your respective state. That should limit all of the introductions and make your banquet very smooth when those who approach the podium speak. Now, let's talk about the ceremonial toast of refection as we begin to wrap up this podcast. The ceremonial toast of at refection should be stated in your program book or souvenir journal if it's included. The program should read Scottish Rite Toast at Refections. That's not a misspelling. Refection means the taking of refreshment such as food or drink. It is the instance of reflecting. The Scottish Rite Toast at Refection should be given immediately following the national anthem, invocation by the worship leader who's in attendance, protocol establishment, and then finally the welcome address. The ceremonial toast will be used only at a banquet. It should not be used at a breakfast. The Sovereign Grand Commander, in fact, stated that the toast should be given anytime there is a dais at a formal Scottish Rite affair. This includes a luncheon, testimonial, or banquet. It does not include a breakfast. It is no longer customary, as you will see in our Constitution, to have the second and third highest ranking officers, first and second lieutenant commanders in a consistory banquet, for example, to repeat the toast in succession. This was done several years ago to speed up the process of the ceremonial toast. The following procedure will be used at all Scottish Rite functions. At the appropriate time, as stated, the Master of Ceremonies will state the following. We are about to begin the traditional Scottish Rite toast at refection. All freighters are requested to stand. I will propose the toast. Please do not repeat the toast. After I propose the toast, we will hold up our goblets and sip from the glass. The audience is cordially invited to participate along with the freighters. Absolute silence is requested during the toast. And then the Master of Ceremonies, or he who is giving the toast at refection, will rap 3 times for everyone to stand who is participating in the toast. Here is the toast that has been approved by our Sovereign Grand Commander, and it goes as follows. To the President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. To the United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliation, Northern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. To the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Northern Jurisdiction, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Melvin J. Bazemore, 33rd degree. To the United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliation, Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. To the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Southern Jurisdiction, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Corey D. Hawkins Sr., 33rd degree. To the Supreme Council of Sovereign Grand Inspectors General of the 33rd and last degree of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry for the Northern Masonic Jurisdiction of the United States of America. And to the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Northern Masonic Jurisdiction, Sovereign Grand Inspector General Walter F. Wheeler, 33rd degree. To the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Southern Jurisdiction of the United States of America. To the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree, Sovereign Grand Inspector General James D. Cole, 33rd degree. To the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state that you're in, and the Most Worshipful Brother, who we are referring to as the Most Worshipful Grand Master. To the Council of Deliberation of the state, to the loyal ladies of the Golden Circle of the particular state, to the Prince Hall Holy Royal Arch Grand Chapter, and other Prince Hall Grand Bodies of the state, and to the memory of the brethren of these degrees, whose labors here below have ceased during the present Masonic year, and to all Masons and Masonic bodies of the rites and degrees over the surface of the earth, honors and laurels to the worthy, health to the sick, comfort to the needy, and succor to the oppressed everywhere. At the conclusion of the toast, the Master of Ceremonies will state the following. Freighters, thank you for your participation and cooperation. Please be seated, and we'll rap 1 time to seat the audience. So I hope that this has proved to be educational and informative. We've covered a lot of information. I'm sure you have questions, but you should contact your deputy, your assistant to the deputy, or this department, the United Supreme Council Education and Development Department, for further instruction. It has been indeed my pleasure to be with you on this podcast. And once again, I'd like to thank the Education and Development Department and the Special Projects Committee for the honor that they have bestowed upon me to be this guest, your guest tonight. Thank you.
All right. So I'm already knowing where I'm gonna go with this one, and I'm gonna have you stop sharing your screen, and that way we can see all our pretty faces here.
Okay, let's go back here. Stop share.
Yep, and I'll
Okay.
cut this out. So Now, all right, get ready. Cool. So we're picked up. Now, Brother Evans, one I have to say first, we've talked about at Scottish Rite Masons, the first campaign we go on to fight is ignorance, right? And so what's ironic was I saw your slide and you said, hey, this is not a misspelling. And I wish you could see my screen because I literally went to Google, like, let me look up this definition of this word, and then you explained it. So refection, right? Am I saying that correctly?
That is correct.
So the members of the Scottish Rite and anybody that's watching it, please, when you hear these words, please Google it. One thing I learned from his presentation is two things. One, there's a preparedness and amount of information that you have to have beforehand. And that's really, really key. So I want to have a question here for you, Brother Evans. Can you walk me through, like, let's say if I'm somebody getting ready to attend or interact or maybe host to be a part of it, besides just jumping right into your constitution, what are some tips, tricks, or some things that you can get prepared so that the banquet runs smoothly, you're understanding what you're doing, right? Like what are some tips that you think that would be very beneficial?
Well, first of all, you want to know the layout of the venue that you're going to be in, whether you're going to have a dais, whether it's going to be a table, and you want to ensure that the head table is always set, because that will govern and dictate just how you will handle the procession, the entrance and regress of your audience, but also it will dictate your Scottish Rite salutation, as well as the acknowledgement of all guests and dignitaries.
And that's something I feel like you should, if you're a person working on this or you're being trained to kind of work with this, right, is that you should work with whoever the housing coordinator is and they're those individuals, because you need to understand, like you said, the layout, right?
Yes.
Shameless plug too, if for you members of the Scottish Rite, if you're watching this and you go back, although the processions and the different actual steps you take in this banquet might be different in other houses, your understanding of to ask some of these questions will make you better all throughout. And if we remember at Scottish Rite Masons, our goal is to unite all Masons in Masonry.
Yes.
So that's what this education committee is trying to pull together for you so that you understand that there's a bigger picture in play here, right? Another question that I had here coming up was if you're and this might sound silly, but I want to know, like, if you're an individual that's new, that's trying to get like the tuxedos and things of this nature, that's really important. You said that's the uniform, and it sounds like if you're going to be involved, I'm pretty sure Grand Inspector General Smith, Sovereign Grand Inspector General Thomas, and yourself, I'm pretty sure you guys got some black and you got some tuxedos. I feel so. What are some like tips, tricks, and tools? Because I think that's something that we never talk about. Like, I have to buy one. I'm going to USC this year for the first time, and so maybe I'm asking for myself, and I'm just taking up other people's time. But any advice in that situation?
Well, I didn't put that in the information that I reviewed tonight to exclude any brother
Oh yeah.
of this degree. But we are an order that has a high level of tradition. We are ancient and accepted, and we want to carry on those traditions into the future. So it is incumbent upon me to tell you exactly what the dress should be. But if you do not have a tuxedo, a black suit will suffice. But hopefully you will work towards having the proper Scottish Rite dress, which is basically going to help us to enhance our image and the way that we are viewed by the world at large.
No, I love it. I love it because, like I said, I'm going to my first one, and I'm like, hey, I need to get a tux. And one, I love that it's bow ties because I like to wear bow ties myself, right? So, but this is very supportive because I think it's something small, but like you said, it goes a long way. Like, imagine if there's just picture this, right? You're in this place, all these dignitaries, and then you have the general population, the general public are seeing you walk in, and every single person's in the tux. You're just looking good. It's just a different feel. So again, thank you for that. If you don't mind me asking too, another question that came up while you were presenting is if I was to ask more questions, you said come to this department or come to yourself, but what are some of the common mistakes or questions that when somebody's getting ready to attend, right? What are some of the common things that they might need to know or do in order to make sure that they're prepared to participate, to engage fully, or if they're part of the ceremony itself in some course?
It's usually the salutations so that we don't overlook anyone who is considered a dignitary. We want to make sure that our banquet is welcoming. We want to make sure that we, however, are recognizing all of those who are not only on the dais, but in the audience, who are of a grade or rank that they've earned and they deserve to be recognized and reflected upon appropriately. So that's where, as I spoke earlier, you have to do your homework. It's great to know who is attending and where they'll be seated, and to have tent cards or placards placed so that you are, putting them in the proper seat of acknowledgement. Because at the United Supreme Council, we seat all of our dignitaries on the podium, which consists of 80 people by grade. So it's important that we do that same practice at our Orients.
And that's a good segue to my last question here is in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, and I think about my like Michigan Council deliberations, I saw a lot of parallels to how things were ran. So I'm assuming, and just correct me if I'm wrong, like if somebody really dives in and learns this process, that they can translate that to their Orients as well in their council deliberations, or even if like our consistory puts on something, we'll be properly prepared. So kind of what is like your advice or your thought on that statement, and kind of what would you tell, let's say, some commander-in-chiefs out there, like kind of what is some words of wisdom you'll give them about moving forward with learning this material and bringing it back home?
Take copious notes. It's really important to review the podcast as a reference, but also keep a small book or diary of seating arrangements, notations about the actual salutations, notations regarding the processional. Remember, lowest the highest the lowest are different in different circumstances, and it can be embarrassing if we don't acknowledge those appropriately. So we don't want to leave this to chance. This is too important to our rite. This is too important in enhancing the Scottish Rite experience to do this 5 minutes before a banquet starts, because we like to start on time. That's who we are in the Northern jurisdiction. So it's important, and my words of advice are to be prepared.
Now, I love it. And again, I want to say so much thank you because I learned a lot. So I sat there as a student and I purposely asked not I purposely did not review your slides beforehand because I want to get the general, I like learning it with the people so I can ask real things that pop up with me. So again, I want to thank you so much here. And again, I'm calling you Brother Evans, right? I feel we're friends at this point now, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I want to thank you so much for being able to allow to offer your time and your assistance. And before we head off for this podcast, I want to at least tell the general public, and there's a couple things that were some house cleaning items that we'll go ahead and do really quickly, just to be able to make sure that we're on the right standpoint here. So jumping in, make sure, if you're not already, that you like and subscribe to United Supreme Council's YouTube page. As we grow this thing out, we're going to create a catalog of information that's going to be able to help us out in perpetuity, right? YouTube's not going anywhere, and then we're going to extend to other platforms down the road, right? So there's a lot of things that you'll get in this situation. Other thing too is take these podcasts and literally you can take this into your consistory, like share it out there and have them watch. It could be like one of your study sessions, right? It might make it a little bit easier for you, and use this to be able to educate and motivate, and also see that no matter the rank, cap, crown, grade, anything, there's something for you to learn and there's something for you to do. Okay, so just understand that we're here. And without further ado, I will give the closing remarks to see if Sovereign Grand Inspector General Dr. Dwayne E. Thomas, our chairperson, to see if he has anything to say before we wrap up here.
Thank you very much. Let me just say a couple things here. First of all, thank you very much, Sovereign Grand Inspector General Elmer Evans, for your excellent presentation on protocol at Scottish Rite Banquets. The information you covered was informative, sir. It was educational. It was reflective. And I do say it was enlightening. And I believe our membership across all Orients will benefit from your excellent lecture this evening. You are indeed an excellent director of Refection. So thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the audience, protocol in all organizations, and all of us are in many organizations, but I would say most especially in our United Supreme Council, is extremely important as it positions us to distinguish ourselves in the most professional manner. And I think Sovereign Grand Inspector General Evans brought that home for us. Lastly, I'd just like to say I want to thank our host and a valued member of our educational and development team, Sublime Prince Stephen Barrett. He continues to do an excellent job as our host of our podcast. He is indeed an outstanding young leader and an excellent facilitator. So I'll pass the floor back over to you, Sublime Prince Barrett.
All right. Well, again, I appreciate it. I'm just here. I learned a very wise thing. They let me know that a wise man doesn't know the answer to every question, only where to get the answer. So essentially, you should know everything. So my goal with this podcast is just to find the people that know all the answers. So then I know who to call, and then I'm always going to know the right answer, right? So again, thank you all for hanging out with us here. Whenever you're watching it, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, the evening, drop some comments. Let us know kind of what we're doing. Give us some feedback. Let's have fun with this, right? Like, this is supposed to be an interactive, it's supposed to be an engaging platform, and this is something that's just never been done before, and we're just excited to kind of go down this path with you. So thank you so much for helping us enhance the Scottish Rite experience. Until the next time, thank you.